Mum, I'm driving actually, I muttered. You're always complaining about drivers who speed down the motorway and get distracted by phone calls. Maybe their mums are giving them a lecture at the same time. Why am I rushing? Because I want to get there on time. You raised me to be responsible. Mum, I'm not laughing. I've heard you. I'll call you on Sunday evening, okay? Say hi to Dad. Bye. He hung up, feeling content and slightly patronizing. His mother, Jane, never changed. Her methodical persistence in achieving her goals was something her son, Alex, had inherited from her. His deputy, Max, often referred to him behind his back as my fanatical boss, and he said it with a hint of pride. Employees and partners alike considered Alex a down-to-earth person, someone who solved problems with a dry wit. No one was surprised by this. It made perfect sense. What else could a village boy from rural Oxfordshire, born to a forestry worker and a local council accountant, be? By the age of 35, he had transformed himself into the owner of a large and highly successful wholesale company in London. Alex traded in fish and seafood, supplying shops and restaurants and owning several wholesale warehouses in his hometown. There, they still called him Alex the Wholesaler. Alex visited his family's village often. No matter how busy he was, it would be no excuse not to visit them every couple of months. It wasn't that he particularly missed village life. It held no appeal for him at all. If it were a village somewhere on the Mediterranean or the Adriatic, where the sun made people perpetually happy and the colors were vibrant, that's where he'd live in a village. But a forestry village, no thank you. Once he was on more stable financial footing, he consistently urged his parents to move in with him. I'll buy you a flat not far from me so I can help out quickly if you need anything. I know you're our little helper. His father, Mike, scoffed proudly. But my whole life is here. My friends, the places I know, I have everything I need here, and I'll find something to do every day in my retirement. Think about it. Can you see me in the city? I'm not used to theaters and museums. They don't interest me. I don't have a single friend there to go fishing or to the pub with. I just turn into a boozer. I've never lived in a flat and I don't want to start now. I need my own house, my own garden, so I can go out and see this forest right in front of me. The cabin I built with my own hands. Why would I leave all that? The house needs to be lived in, or it will quickly fall into disrepair. What good is a house in the village for a young man? Jane countered. And what modern girl would come here on holiday just to feed the midges? Alex would take them to the south, to the seaside, to see something exotic. Wouldn't you, my boy? Mum, you get it, Alex said, feeling excited. Just agree to move to London, and I'll organize a trip to the south for you too. We can even go this summer. Don't waste your money. You'll need it yourself. We're perfectly happy living up here in the north, Jane replied, winking. Once you get rich, then yes, I'll be happy to go. But I don't want to move either, even though I miss you terribly. This is my comfort zone. Mom, I see you're up to date on modern psychology trends, Alex laughed. I was never behind the times, Jane said, laughing along with him. Your father and I are still young, Alex. We don't really need your help. We can manage on our own. When you have children, you'll be the one who needs my help with the grandkids. Then maybe we'll move, if we get along with your wife. Alex knew his mother too well to push the issue. If she said no, she might change her mind, but only after much independent thought. She never changed her mind just because someone asked or demanded it. His mother, a small, plump blonde with a gentle, pretty face, seemed soft and compliant at first glance. But those who knew her better would chuckle at the thought. She was strong and stubborn. She could masterfully steer her impulsive father where she wanted him to go, without limiting his freedom in small, male matters. She was gentle and smart at the same time. He was sure they didn't make people like her anymore. They were slowly disappearing from the face of the earth. Alex's inheritance of his mother's calm stubbornness was not for nothing. He never lost hope of convincing his parents to move. As his business flourished and his profits grew, he bought a small house near London, under an hour's drive from the city, that needed a bit of redecoration. He brought his parents to see it. Look at this place. It's fantastic. The woods, the sea is nearby. There's a pub just around the corner, run by Peter, a great man. He's my age. You can decorate it however you like. I'll hire an interior designer to make it perfect. You decorate it however you like, or however is fashionable now. It's your house. We're not going to boss you around. Soon you'll be bringing a young lady here to be your wife. There can't be but two head women in the house, even though we know some very rare exceptions to that rule. Mike and I are so proud of you, and we love coming to visit. But our house is our own house. Jane was as unshakable as a small, sturdy rock. Sometimes Alex got tired of driving. He used the term not only for driving a car, but for any kind of business hustle. He allowed himself to stop for a few minutes to relax at the first place he came across. He didn't analyze why a particular place attracted him. It didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was the result. Just now, he had passed a small village and regretted it, but he wasn't going to turn back. Or was he? He hadn't gone that far. He stopped on the outskirts of some small town at the first petrol station he saw. He just wanted to get some disgusting hot dog and think about his options for a nice overnight stay. He scrolled through a travel app for cozy flats along the way. It couldn't hurt. He got out of the car and breathed in the air, a mix of petrol and wetted leaves. A bonfire was burning at a safe distance from the station, and several tall, lanky boys were jumping in front of it. "Let go of the dog!" A sharp, clear voice cut through Alex's moment of relaxation. He always switched gears instantly when he sensed danger or any inconvenience. But this time he was too tired, and an elegant indifference washed over him. He had to return from his cocoon to the real world. "What do you want again?" a lazy voice answered, spiced with a lazy swear word. A chorus of supporters laughed in the background. Alex became wary. He didn't like these types of gangs from his hometown. "I'll roast your filthy dog for a kebab. I'll roast you too, Jeannie, but with a different recipe if you give us any lip," a high-pitched, mocking voice shouted. "Leave me alone," a frightened voice cut in. In the circle of lamplight, a skinny, thin, long-haired redhead was standing in a short jacket, tight jeans, and Wellington boots. The boys, who were closing in on her, stepped back from the bright light. But she didn't. She just grabbed a scruffy, dirty dog that one of the boys had just let go of and hugged it tightly. "Okay, Jeannie, we were just messing with you. Go on, go home." A well-dressed man, who looked as if he might accidentally have a hunting rifle in his boot, said in a mock peaceful tone. "You're wrong. I wasn't going anywhere," the clever redhead declared. She theatrically shook her hair, and to the silence of the temporarily dumbfounded group, turned and walked towards the Range Rover. Not rushing, but with a death grip on the confused dog's fur. "Thank you," the girl said, only after they had stepped onto the petrol station property. "Where can I take you?" Alex asked, almost indifferently, like an emergency services answering machine. The girl was no longer in danger of becoming a victim, and he could make a small detour to take her home, but he had no interest in talking to her. "People usually address strangers as you know. Without being rude," she reminded him. Alex was surprised and even a little amused for the first time all evening, all day even. He felt a wave of cheerfulness. "Right. Where can I take you, madam? Where are you expected?" "I'm afraid nowhere," the redhead said, shrugging her sharp shoulders. "Look, if you've had a fight with your mum and dad, that's no reason to make them file a missing person report. Sorry, I'm calling you again. How old are you? Don't tell me that ladies don't ask about age, because I wouldn't be surprised by that answer." "I'm fine with it," the girl said calmly. "I'm actually 21, though I'm used to being mistaken for 15. I even finished college with a degree in economics and accounting, just like my mum wanted. I even started looking for a job in the field, just like my mum wanted. I don't mind her being happy. I just wish she had consulted with me before she married that man. She trusts him more than she trusts me. She's a nurse and works a lot of shifts. And her new husband, Barry, is a mechanic at a confectionery factory. He's always home in the evenings. They don't make cakes at night. I would heat up dinner for myself in the evening, and for him too. First, he would put his hand on my shoulder, then on my knee, and a few days later, I was lucky just to fend him off. He got offended and said he would kick me out if I didn't smarten up. I was hesitant, but I decided to tell Mum. She had a right to know who she was living with. She told me I was ungrateful and a terrible egoist. She said she had worked so hard to raise me, and now I was ruining her happiness, the happiness she had waited so long for. I was slandering her loving husband. Maybe that would have been the end of it, but she confronted Barry. He immediately came up with a story. "I'm sorry, Kathy, I didn't want to upset you, but your daughter deliberately provokes me. She'll stop at nothing to break us up. It's not your fault that she turned out this way. You worked so hard to provide for her. I have no complaints. Of course, he's so noble. He had no complaints. Mum believed him without question. She called me a name and demanded that I apologize to the offended Barry. I pretended to go to sleep, packed a rucksack with some clothes and my documents, and left. I only took my own money. Maybe it would have been smart to take some of Barry's, but I couldn't do it. It would have meant I was no better than him. You must think this is all a sob story to make you feel sorry for me, or that I'm a tramp, or that I want to ask you for money to buy a drink. My appearance probably suggests that. But I have a destination. Where? To London? What for? For the love of art. You liked it? Alex asked, catching himself thinking that for some reason he believed this girl. I'm a fool, but not that much of a fool, the girl explained. What's there to like about it? It's only good until October in warmer climates. How do you know that? Have you been there? No, of course not. I haven't earned enough for that yet. I just read a lot. I want to travel someday, of course. Not as extreme as this. I forgot to ask where you were travelling from. Bedfordshire, St. Neots Station. I decided to go to London. My dad lives there with his new family. They have a house. We haven't talked in a long time. But I thought he wouldn't mind putting me up for a while, at least for some money, until I could find a job, any job. I should have checked with him beforehand, but I just went like a hedgehog in the fog. Of course, if I had his number, I would have called him. But I just took a chance and arrived. The house was there, but my dad wasn't. He works on a rotating basis in the far north. Only his wife and their twin boys were at the house. I showed her my documents. She said she believed me anyway. I look a lot like my dad, and her boys have the same red hair as me. She was so calm, not hysterical at all. She showed me the documents for their house. Everything was in her name. She explained that the house was her inheritance, and she and my father had an honest agreement. He couldn't buy a house like this, but he works for the family on his rotation, while she just raises the children and takes care of the garden and waits for him. She said there really wasn't any room for me. She wasn't a charity. So I shouldn't pretend and just go back to my mum. She said it much more politely than I'm telling you. I had nothing to say in return. She was right. She even let me stay the night. She wasn't afraid I'd steal something. I was ready to leave the next morning. But as I was walking to the station, some scumbags on a moped sped by and snatched my rucksack with my money, phone, and documents. For some reason, I was carrying it on one strap instead of on my back. Luckily, my passport was in my jacket pocket. When I showed it to Dad's wife, I was too lazy to put it back in the rucksack. I can show you. The girl reached into her pocket and held her passport out to Alex. Nice to meet you, Eugenia Nichols, he said, laughing. And I'm Alexander Davies. Sounds like a soap opera. Alexander Davies? That's so cool, Eugenia said nicely. I didn't think a Bruce Willis type like you watched soap operas. They were playing them in a loop recently. My mum used to watch them sometimes to unwind. Alex replied automatically without reacting to the Bruce Willis comment. I've already figured out that you didn't go to the police, so they wouldn't send you home. But you weren't really going to be a vagrant, were you? You don't seem stupid. At the same time, you are. What kind of prospects do you think you have on the street? Alex cut himself off sharply. The girl was clearly not in a state to be lectured, and he had taken on a tone as if he were giving a job interview. It was pretty funny. He must have been overtired and needed a therapist to close his emotional wounds, as his chief accountant liked to say. None, at least none of the decent ones, Eugenia said, and didn't miss a beat. And what should I do with you? Should I turn you over to the police? It feels wrong. Should I leave you here? Not an option. And are you taking the dog with you from your house? No, that's Fiver. I fed her a sausage from the supermarket with the same name on the way to my dad's house. She followed me like a shadow. She waited for me while I stayed the night there and then kept going with me. Maybe you have some work for me? I'll take any unskilled labor. I clean and cook well. I don't know world cuisines, but my borscht and dumplings are delicious. And you would go now to see the workplace? Alex scoffed. I'm completely free. Why not? You really are a fool, aren't you? If you're not pretending to be, Alex said, shaking his head. Your mum must have been completely wrapped up in her own life, not your upbringing, if she didn't instill in you that you shouldn't get in a car with strange men. Thanks, Captain Obvious, the girl said, smiling visibly. I wouldn't get in with just anyone, but not many people care about what's happening to others. I didn't expect anyone to stick up for me and Fiver, or even listen to what was going on. If a person saves me first and then listens to me, I think I can trust him. And you have a hunting rifle. I know how to spot them. My granddad was a hunter. Simple logic. You are surprisingly logical, Alex smirked. I'm probably hungry. I'd eat a hot dog from a petrol station, Eugenia confessed. What were you thinking, Alex? Alex thought. What made a practical man make such a foolish decision? The girl was lying on the back seat, curled up comfortably, as if she had spent her whole life sleeping only on narrow, fold-out beds or on long-distance trains. If Fiver, stretched out on the floor, occasionally snored behind Alex, Eugenia slept so quietly that you couldn't even tell she was there. It was clear that the girl was from a good family, even if she came from a single-parent household. Alex, who had been an orphan for some time, was good at reading people. For 6 months, he had been seriously thinking about hiring a housekeeper and having them live in the empty guest house. He didn't like large groups of people at his house, so he kept his home and his social gatherings separate, and the guest house was always empty. It had almost everything needed for a person to live there. What it didn't have, he could take from the main house. He very, very weakly believed that the candidates recommended by a domestic staff agency would be any better. You should know this is my very first job, not counting handing out leaflets. And not quite awake, Eugenia said, cutting the air with the edge of her hand. And this isn't me asking for understanding or indulgence. It's me telling you that you'll need to explain everything to me in detail. My daily responsibilities, my weekly ones, the little things that would make your life easier so I don't get in your way and ask foolish questions. The more detailed the instructions, the better the result. You're a sensible girl sometimes, Alex said with a laugh. It only seems that way, Eugenia reassured him. I just don't like problems. Fine, you've convinced me. I'll make you a detailed list of instructions, Alex promised. I'll pay you the average market rate as long as you don't neglect your duties. A job is a job. Thank you. You're really helping me out, even saving me. You won't regret it. I'm responsible when there's a real reason to be. Alex somehow expected her to liven up and start talking non-stop about her life, but the girl fell silent, stared out the window, and after 10 minutes was quietly asleep again. How many miles had she walked that day? It was suspicious that she wasn't repelled by anything and was happy with everything. No, not just happy, but everything pleased her. For the past 2 months, Eugenia had lived and worked in the bright, almost always empty house near London, surrounded by a vast, echoing forest, where she had managed to pick so many bolets that she had even dried and frozen a considerable stash for the winter. Of course, if a wife and children appeared here, her duties would immediately become more complicated. But then, people with a completely different skill set would be needed. For now, Eugenia Nichols would do. She had honestly warned her employer that she would try to change her life at the first opportunity. If he wanted a real, permanent, and reliable housekeeper who would take her work seriously and manage the house and garden, then it definitely wasn't her. But Alex liked everything so far. He never once complained or showed any sign of dissatisfaction with Eugenia's tidiness. But he had never really expressed his satisfaction either. Okay, good, he would say with a quick smile upon returning from the office or somewhere else. Oh well, at least he wasn't yelling and demanding that she work to the bone for his small salary. She was lucky to have a sane employer. Her friend Lucy rejoiced for her. Jeannie had barely settled into Alex's guest house and begun to manage his simple household in the large main house when he immediately gave her a smartphone for work calls, which she could also use for personal matters. Eugenia hesitated and found 2 of her closest friends on social media. They were the only ones she wanted to share her journey, adventure, and unexpected employment with. Lucy and Daisy were shocked that she had left without warning, and of course joked about it. Hello, dear Cinderella, we are your 2 unlucky sisters writing to you. But they only did it for show. They quickly grew bored, and the second day, their messages returned to the usual conversations between old friends who had known each other since first grade. After thinking of a safe way to put it, the girls went to her mother, where they found out that she had not filed a missing person report. She told them she assumed her daughter would materialize on her doorstep as soon as it got cold outside and her friend's couch became uncomfortable. She and Jeannie's mum thought that Jeannie was living somewhere nearby, but they hadn't bothered to look for her. Eugenia cried quietly for almost a whole night, with her head buried in Fiver's scruffy neck. She had known for a long time that her mother didn't really need her. But it was another thing to have that feeling confirmed. Well, so what? Her favorite audit teacher in college was an orphan. She had told Jeannie and Lucy that she had no idea who her parents were, and that her childhood was an endless series of handouts. They had no idea why this calm, pretty woman, who had a husband, a son, a daughter, a dog, and a cat, would tell them this. Nothing terrible happened to her without her mother's love, and nothing would happen to Jeannie either. Alex had strongly advised her to let her mother know that she was okay. After all, a mother is a mother. She isn't a monster. She'll start looking for you when winter comes. She might even think the worst and file a police report. Jeannie didn't think about it for long before agreeing. Okay, I'll do that, but a little later. I'm not ready yet. It was certainly not cold in Alex's house, so there was no reason to go back to her hometown. The heating system was well designed. In the beginning, still unable to get rid of the memories of her mother's friends, Eugenia was wary of the guests who came to the house, but his guests were a rare occurrence, and the ones who did come talked more about business and behaved as if they were in a business meeting. Her work was boring. Every Friday, Jeannie would wipe the delicate figurines and quirky decorative candles on the mantelpiece in the living room and think that the owner of the house clearly expected other guests if he had bought and arranged all this. He had arranged them awkwardly, so she rearranged them to make them look prettier. He didn't mind, and Jeannie was happy. She even began to worry. Did he have any friends? Not these smiling, smooth, or, on the contrary, reserved, wary business partners, but just friends who would call him Alex and talk about ordinary, interesting things with him. But he often came home after midnight. Not many people want to talk about ordinary things at that time. Does your Mr. Davies ever talk to you about anything other than work? Or does he just treat you like furniture? Her friends would ask. He rarely talks to me, but I don't feel like furniture, Jeannie would say, not even thinking about it. That Friday, the owner didn't answer his phone about the weekly grocery shopping. He arrived much later than usual, at 3 a.m., and a graceful, well-groomed brunette with coral fingernails on her long, thin fingers fluttered out of his car at the same time, as if on cue. Jeannie should have just gone to bed after she finished everything she had to do, instead of waiting up for him like an idiot. She was angry with herself for this miscalculation, and even more angry because she was so upset by the surprise, a surprise she should have been completely indifferent to. For important visitors, Alex would usually call in advance and give specific instructions. But this guest was a complete surprise. She didn't even say anything to Jeannie's greeting, just glanced at her with an indifferent look, as if she were a girl with a paddle in an old park. That was fine with Jeannie. It meant she could behave the same way. She laughed cozily to herself and disappeared into the gloom. At least she could be sure that no one would bother her in her guest house until the morning. She went home, tiptoeing as if she could wake someone up, and got ready to take a bath and go to sleep. But she was startled by her phone, which rang unexpectedly. Jeannie didn't want to answer it, but it kept ringing. Eugenia? Alex's deputy Max exhaled almost patiently. Thank goodness it's you. Are you at your place, or are you somewhere near Mr. Davies? Sorry for the stupid question at this time of night. His phone is suddenly off, and I need him urgently. I'm at my place. Jeannie, I know I have no right to ask you for anything, especially in the middle of the night, and I wouldn't if it weren't so important. Please understand me. We have a problem with the documents for our last big batch of snacks. It was only discovered during the night shipment. We need to do something about it urgently. Please run over to Mr. Davies' house and give him this phone. I'll text you now and call you back in 5 minutes. Jeannie didn't even think about it. Maybe it was something really big. She threw a long, almost floor-length puffer coat she had bought with her first paycheck over her pajamas, slipped her feet into her sports boots, and quietly went out the door. The front door of the main house was, as usual, unlocked. Why would it be when the gate was locked and there was an alarm system and video surveillance? Jeannie deliberately stomped loudly on the stairs to the second floor, where the master guest bedroom was located, to not catch the couple off guard. But it seemed her movements, like a Native American tracker in her boots, went unheard. A conversation, quite loud and lively for the middle of the night, was coming from behind the door. Where did you see a whim in this, Alex? It's a normal request from a girl with self-respect. I'm not a prude, and I understand men's physiological needs perfectly well, as you've already been able to see. But the times of plantation owners and their serfs are long gone, since you're so conscientious and socially responsible that you can't fire her on the spot. Write this girl an ideal recommendation and pay for some kind of, I don't know, VIP package to find her a job through a domestic staff agency. It's nothing personal. I just want her to find her luck somewhere else. I assure you, it's not her that I have a problem with. She can sleep with anyone she wants. I just don't want her sleeping with my man. No one has complained that I can't explain my position clearly. Alex's calm, tired voice was heard in return. It's interesting that you compared us, the woman's voice said, but the conversation was not destined to continue. Jeannie's phone in her coat pocket rang. It was Max again, whom she had forgotten about while standing by the door. She immediately realized what she was doing. She began to pound on the door and said out loud, "Max Ilinsky is calling on urgent business." Alex opened the door almost immediately and with a quick move slipped out the door so she couldn't see into the bedroom, as if she cared. Jeannie handed the phone to Alex and turned to leave without waiting for a comment. Her friend Lucy was right. Everything was too good to be true. Something like this can't last forever. You shouldn't get used to good things so that it doesn't hurt so much when it ends. Lucy was the most sensible and practical of all of Jeannie's friends and acquaintances, and because of this, many people didn't want to be friends with her. Jeannie just shrugged and said everyone was different. Lucy's practicality didn't bother her at all. On the contrary, it was good to have such a calm person nearby. She needed to wait until morning and call her to ask where to go next. A gloomy apathy fell on Jeannie, endless and sluggish like rubber. She wanted to cry. She had only slept for a little while and didn't even know if it had been a dream. She just fell out of reality and then returned again. In the morning, at 8, she got out of bed and made coffee for herself on the small gas stove. She sat at a narrow table with her cup and looked around for her phone to call Lucy, and only then remembered that her phone was with Alex. "You're an idiot," Jeannie complained to Fiver, who was lying at her feet with a calm face, as if Jeannie's life was clear and happily decided forever. "You're such a fool." Jeannie was supported by her short conversations with the dog. Nothing extra, just the essence of the question. And she could make up the dog's answers herself. It was all nonsense, of course, but it helped her to look at the problem calmly and find a solution. "Just don't get too carried away with that kind of therapy," Lucy had advised her, almost seriously. "You should make some friends among people instead." But that was easy for her to say. If she had a regular job, it would be a different story. But she lived here like a recluse. It was comfortable and calm, but completely deserted. It turned out that Alex had never had any housekeepers or helpers before. He didn't even have a visiting cook. "I'm not a big foodie," Alex had explained, "and as you can see, I often come home at night. During the day, I have business lunches, and in the evening, I often have to have dinner at a restaurant with partners. For other occasions, I just get something delivered. Now I have you. You cook for yourself and for me too, which is great, especially the beef. So I did not have a cook because I was stingy. I just didn't feel the need for one. But I started thinking about tidiness and order, so I hired you. Problem solved. Everyone says the house feels much more comfortable, and I think so too." Complaining about her job and life would be the height of arrogance. Before, Jeannie thought a job like this was something demeaning. You could call it whatever you wanted, but it was being a servant. "You girls get the wrong idea from watching TV shows," Alex said, laughing, noticing her initial confusion and tension. "You are an employee, just like anyone else. Just not an office or shop employee, but a domestic one. Make yourself at home for now. If you don't like it, we'll find you something else. I have a lot of low-level vacancies." Jeannie was too shy to ask him why he was helping her. Even the perfectly logical Lucy couldn't see any real reason. The girls had unanimously dismissed the possibility of a romantic relationship right away. Of course, that was the most tempting idea, but Alex didn't show the slightest hint of interest in Jeannie as a woman. He was a kind employer who wasn't too interested in his employee's personality as long as her work was satisfactory. The food was on him. Apparently, many employers did this for domestic staff. He gave her a credit card for groceries and other things for the house. For a week, he controlled her spending and then he stopped. He said, You can spend more if you really think something needs to be bought for the house. Just consult with me about large purchases like a new washing machine or something. Jeannie had never heard a single complaint from him. She honestly tried to remember one. Not one. She probably didn't work flawlessly. It was more likely that Alex was just not a picky person. I have only one plausible theory, Lucy concluded. He made his own way in the world and now sees life simply. Why not help a girl if it costs him nothing? And it's also useful for him, in a way. Now Alex would probably fire her. First, his girlfriend didn't like her. Second, she was listening at the door. Even if it was by accident, she was still listening. Jeannie had not had time to sit down on the floor next to Fiver to think about her next move when there was a short knock at the door. "Come in, it's open," Jeannie said, trying to sound calm. Alex came in and put her phone on the table. "Here it is. I'm returning it. Max and I really inconvenienced you. It rarely happens, but sometimes it does. If it happens again, please be understanding. These are work matters. I never turn my phone off at night, but sometimes it has a life of its own. In short, I'm sorry." "You have my apology too," Jeannie heard herself say. "I didn't mean to listen in on your conversation. I just got flustered when I realized you were talking about me. If you want me to leave, I'll leave without a problem. You've helped me so much. My friends didn't believe at first that something like this could happen just for the sake of it. Thanks to you, I'm not in a bad situation with my citizenship, registration, or with my profession. I don't know what you've been making up in your head, Eugenia Nichols, but I don't want to get into it," Alex said, waving his hand tiredly, almost grimly. "I thought I had found someone for a serious relationship, but it turns out I was wrong. You just work calmly and don't overthink things." Jeannie noticed that he had a habit of fidgeting with things when he was thinking. His phone, a wine glass. Now he had automatically picked up a thin sketchbook from Jeannie's dining table. He opened it, started flipping through it, and became animated. "Wow, this is with a regular pencil. You can do this and you don't say anything?" "You never asked about my hobbies," Jeannie blurted out, the first thing that came to her mind. "Fiver looks so alive, and her personality is in the drawing. I only look that good after a holiday when I spend a week on a beach in the Caribbean, disconnected from everything. And Max? He looks like a heartthrob and a crook, just like in real life. I only saw my accountant, Anne, once. But it's as if you've known her your whole life. You have a talent. I'm not joking." Jeannie felt the true meaning of the expression, wishing the ground would swallow you up. She was pretty good at dealing with criticism and complaints, and she wasn't afraid to speak her mind during arguments. But she wasn't used to praise and felt out of place. It was her own fault. She was leaving her personal things lying around as if she wanted them to be found. Of course, if Alex had been more tactful, he wouldn't have looked. It wasn't his business. Just because she didn't have her own property didn't mean she couldn't have her own secrets. But he took everything in his position as his own, and that was normal. Alex's normal, everyday voice brought her back to earth from her world of thoughts. "I'm going to the main warehouse, and then to the office. The guest has already left in a taxi, so don't worry. You probably won't see her here again. I'll see you in the evening." He nodded and left. Fiver took a deep breath, and Jeannie let out a long breath. And she was surprised to find that she was thinking about something she should not have been. Now she'd have to start looking for a new place. A woman like that would never be alone for long. She was too beautiful. Jeannie wished she could draw her in some ancient Roman outfit with a field of wildflowers behind her. Until recently, Alex hadn't wondered if he was lucky in his personal life. It didn't seem important to him. He could get around to it later. It was never too late to catch up. There were always more important things to do that required his full focus and energy, so there wasn't enough time for a real relationship. He would have to deal with the constant nagging of his head accountant, who wanted to share her life with the boss. But he was tired of it and had broken up with her. Of course, Alex had had holiday romances. Every one of them was a nice memory, and he never wanted them to continue after the holiday was over. To the envy of many, he was popular with attractive, self-sufficient, and independent women whose lives were too busy and interesting to spend them on a man. In such relationships, no one gets hurt. They are just for pleasure and for enjoying life. Alex was quite happy with his life. If only his parents didn't think he was living his life wrong, and if only they didn't remind him of it. Even his always understanding mother started gradually changing her ways after his 30th birthday. Yesterday, she had called him an ideal son, who had achieved so much on his own because he didn't get distracted by foolish things. Suddenly, she declared that none of it was very valuable if there was no one to share it with. No one? Mum, you and Dad have a new house and 2 cars. You've started traveling, and I look at you and I'm happy that I was able to give you a normal life. That's great, Alex. We're so proud and we enjoy it, but we could have lived without all this. But seeing you happy, that's what's most important for your father and me. Mum, I don't look unhappy, do I? Alex asked with a happy smile. I know and love my work. I have a home to go to, and I have a close friend, just one, but I don't need more. You know me. I just haven't met the one I want to be with every day. I'm not going to marry just anyone just because it's time, especially since no one gets married like they used to, say 30 years ago. I know, his mother sighed, feigning an air of resignation. At least, it was easier for Alex to think that she was feigning it. One day, he overheard his parents' conversation and realized that they were seriously worried. Mike, I'm starting to think that Alex still remembers Sandy. That's why he can't find anyone. It happens. Remember my second cousin, Boris? A classmate of his left for the army and never waited for him. To others, it was just some silly childhood romance. But he died a lonely bachelor without any children. It's one thing to be young, but when you get old, you become so lost and sad. I'm starting to think Alex is like that too. Nonsense. He doesn't have that kind of character. He doesn't even remember any Sandy. He's been making money. He started earning a good living. It's normal for a guy to have some fun after he's put his life in order. He's been living it up, and in a few years, he'll be ready to settle down. Alex felt guilty, even though he knew he wasn't. He was making his mother worry, and he didn't want to. It was a foolish story, and his father was right. He hadn't thought about Sandy for a couple of years. She had faded from his memory and was lost. Sandy had been his childhood friend, a classmate, just like his legendary Uncle Boris. Her mother had divorced her husband and returned with her daughter to her parents' home from the other side of the country. They were a noisy, boisterous, and strong-willed bunch. They snickered and whispered when their teacher announced, "This is Sandy Purnell. She'll be studying with us." Sandy was graceful, very quiet, and in a way very bright. She had soft, fair hair and big blue eyes. She was a simple princess from a fairy tale, a cliched princess, a perfect example. Alex was a top student, but not a nerd. He was an athlete and the undisputed leader in his class. That day, his seatmate got the flu, and the new girl was seated next to Alex. He didn't say or do anything special, but from that day on, they became friends. Most of the pretty girls in their village were simple, but Sandy was not one of them. She grew up to be a real beauty. The most common market t-shirts looked like they came from an expensive boutique. At least, that's what everyone in their remote village thought at the time. None of the girls argued with her about her looks. They considered it a useless fight. And she was so easygoing, harmless and kind that she had no enemies, and there was nothing to gossip about. For a village beauty, that was very strange. Sandy's mother, Auntie Marina, became friends with Alex's mother and didn't hide her happiness that her daughter had found such a serious and reliable fiancé, who was also handsome and an athlete. Alex's mother, Jane, didn't know whether to be happy or not. The girl was very bright, but she had no special demands. I can't find a single thing to complain about with your Sandy, and that's very suspicious, she would say with a laugh, though she was not entirely joking. The village girls had their own kind of rustic beauty, but Sandy looked different, as if she hadn't grown up there. At the same time, she had no special talents except for the beauty that nature had given her. When they finished school, Sandy wasn't very interested in studying. She had always been an average student and didn't seem to have any big career ambitions, so she just enrolled in a hairdressing college near home. My Sandy is pretty and sociable, and she has great taste, her mother said, approving of her choice. Customers are always more willing to go to a master like that than to some cranky person. She would get lost in London too. Alex, on the other hand, immediately got into a technical university with a military department, just as he had planned with his family since he was 9 years old. Everyone at home seriously discussed what could go wrong. Beauty is not the most important thing, Jane, his mother said. He will meet many other beautiful girls. What if he meets some girls at university who grew up in the city on theatres and museums, and he finds them more interesting? You're just worried for nothing, Marina said, trying to cheer her up. At least she will show him that she is a loyal and decent person, which is rare these days, especially with her looks. Those are the girls men marry. Alex will achieve a lot in life. You don't need to be a fortune teller to see that. He'll make sure you have a good life and get to see the world. Girls, when they're young and foolish, give up good guys, thinking there will be plenty of them. But that's not true. Sandy waited for Alex flawlessly. It was as if she wasn't interested in any other boys. She's a serious girl. I didn't even expect it, Mike said one day, praising her. You know, Mike, if she had gone to a big city and acted the same way, that would be great. But here, who is she going to see? All the boys who want to achieve something leave. I didn't leave at one point, Mike replied. We had a different upbringing, Jane said diplomatically, regretting that she had brought up a sensitive topic. She was quickly finishing the conversation. We don't even need to look for a bride. We already have a ready and responsible Alex. All she has to do is pass over the less suitable candidates. So you're going to be a nasty mother-in-law? Her husband asked, raising his eyebrows with a cunning smile. I'm a good one, Jane said, giving him a playful warning with her fist, and then she laughed herself. I'm a good mother-in-law to the one who deserves it. During his first few years at university, Alex always came home on weekends and short holidays, and Sandy would go to London whenever she could. He was already juggling his studies with a job, and Sandy was doing party and wedding hairstyles from home. She had a lot more free time. The train conductors from Arkhangelsk to St. Petersburg quickly came to know the fragile, airy blonde who took large bags of homemade food, especially marinated and salted mushrooms, which her boyfriend loved, with her. These trips were interesting from the very beginning when she and Alex spent evenings together, but they became even more interesting a year or so later when Alex began making friends and acquaintances in London with whom he could spend time. Alex had a friend, Ian, who was good at organizing everything. He knew London down to the smallest detail because 3 generations of his ancestors had lived there. But his father had recently been transferred to a senior government position in Moscow, and Ian and his mother chose to stay in London at least until Ian finished university. There was no rush. Sandy quickly noticed that her Alex was copying Ian's habits and how he behaved around people. Alex was even more attractive than his friend, but the difference was that he spent too much time earning money, and he still had much less money than Ian, and it would take a long, long time for him to even have a chance of having the same opportunities as Ian. Ian had no daily problems at all. His father's new position in Moscow opened up a lot of opportunities for his son. Ian had a way with words. He didn't have a steady girlfriend, which was a big surprise. Ian even said it at his birthday party when he took Sandy to a stylish corner of his father's garden that was a copy of an Italian patio. She's not here yet. But what if she's you? Why do strangers need any extra details? Relationships are born by themselves. Sandy thought about it and decided that she was definitely the one. She left for Moscow with Ian after they secretly and legally got married. To prove that they were married, Sandy's mother later showed an interested friend a photo of a small city council building in London. In the photo, the delicate bride in her shimmering silver blue dress was holding onto the arm of her self-confident husband. The wedding was wonderful, not for relatives who wanted a party at someone else's expense, but just for the two of them. There were no awkward relatives showing up. It was just a fairy tale for two. The honeymoon was in Phuket, Thailand. The photos were taken by a talented and expensive photographer. In all the photos, Ian was smiling broadly, arrogantly and triumphantly, and Sandy was a delicate fairy. Children's lives are their own, Marina said calmly and sensibly, showing her friend the photos. The kids sent these to me from Thailand by email, Buam, and I decided to print them for an album. So beautiful, no worse than Lady Di. A prince and a glamorous kitten, Marina? What do you want me to say? Jane said, looking at the beautiful pictures almost indifferently, without any sarcasm. I'm glad it happened this way now, that my son and your daughter didn't get married and have a baby. It would have been physically hard for him, so sad, and a chronic disappointment, as the doctors would say. Alex didn't say a single bad word about his almost wife, and he didn't let anyone else say anything bad about her. He just silently processed it all. He worked harder than anyone else and didn't allow himself to relax, as if he were wearing an invisible shield. He didn't make any friends either, just useful business connections. His only friend was still his classmate, Vlad, a bookworm and, at the same time, a snowboarder and rock climber. As soon as he broke up with Jane, his business suddenly got better. Of course, the events were not related in any way, but it was funny. He never liked the stupid saying about a woman being a burden, but it really fit his relationship with Jane. "You should thank that girl you picked up for making things work out for you so well, my dear boss," his deputy Max told him confidentially. He was in the mood to develop his idea further, but his boss was not. "Max, let's agree that you will not call my housekeeper a pickup. I don't call the constantly changing secretaries in your department that you're not a born deputy general manager with an inherited title either." Almost half a year passed. It was April, and spring was already very much in the air in the coastal forests. During their short walks, Jeannie and Fiver discovered that their neighbors were game bird hunters. Jeannie didn't want to talk to the men, but she talked with the hunters and their four-legged companions. The clumsy, large, and shaggy Fiver played cheerfully with the sleek and expensive hunting dogs, champions of possible dog shows. She turned out to be completely harmless and very friendly. "My overgrown puppy," Jeannie would say with a laugh. Every neighbor that Alex didn't really know was a different story. He never had time to get to know them. Now they all had a pencil portrait of their dog with their children, or of their dog with their wife and children, or of their dog with their beloved, respected owner in his study against a bookcase, or a portrait of a woodcock, or portraits of all the family's dogs and cats without their wives and children, or any desired combination. All because Alex Davies's housekeeper, Jeannie Nichols, was an aspiring graphic artist who was a little short on theoretical knowledge. So she was studying and at the same time working at a job that didn't interfere with her studies. Jeannie began to draw obsessively when an art expert whom Max had found at his boss's request to look at her work cautiously approved. "It's fresh, original. Where did you study? In a bookkeeper's college? It happens. There are as many self-taught masters as you want. Now you have to study." After giving her detailed recommendations, the expert and the owner went to the orangery. There, among the citrus trees, Alex had a cozy corner where he sometimes entertained his guests with cognac or whiskey. Jeannie went back to her guest house, quietly turned the key in the lock, sat by the window, and unexpectedly began to cry silently. She couldn't remember the last time she had been so weak. It had probably been in school. The tears were light, not bitter, and they didn't sting her eyes. If only her mother could have heard what the gallery professor had said. He had no reason to lie. He could have easily hinted to the housekeeper that she should get better at dusting, or that she should try to find a job as an assistant accountant, since she had the degree. Her memory brought her a detailed picture of the conversation she had with her mother before her school graduation. "Jeannie, I'm telling you one more time, and I will not repeat myself. As long as I feed you and dress you, I will decide what you'll study. It's not fair. It's my life. You're not going to feed me my whole life, are you? And then I'll have to live with a job I hate. My job, which I hated, allowed me to raise you. So don't be a smart aleck. All of you at your age think you're smarter than your mothers. Don't look at me like that, as if you have an evil witch for a mother. If you had a rich dad who would support you and give you a good start in life, that would be different. I wouldn't mind if you practiced any art you wanted. But you're the daughter of a divorced nurse with very little in child support. You need a profession that will feed you. Bookkeepers are needed everywhere, and they quickly start earning a good living. They don't have night shifts or whining patients. My classmate Amanda works from her dacha, managing a few small firms remotely. It's so nice. She has a cat on her lap and no annoying bosses. And you'd think she was a genius at school? She was just an average student like me, a painter like our neighbor's daughter Jenny. No one needs artists, but even a mediocre bookkeeper will find a stable job. If you're lucky enough to marry well, you can do whatever you want if your husband agrees to provide for you, but for now, you'll do what I say. She wondered how her mother was living now. It was as if she never had a daughter. A month into her life near London, Jeannie asked Lucy to tell her mother where she was and how she was doing. Lucy told her briefly. Jeannie was doing well, she was working as a live-in housekeeper and was getting a good salary. Just before the new year, Jeannie gathered her courage and called her mother. Her mother's voice was sometimes lost in the midst of other voices and laughter, clearly at a dinner party. Happy New Year, Mum. I wish you happiness and health. Are you at home for New Year's? You're not working, are you? Happy New Year to you too. Barry and I have invited some guests over, so it's not a good time to talk. Let's talk in a couple of days, okay? Okay, Jeannie agreed, already knowing that her mother wouldn't call her back in a couple of days. I'm calling from my new number, my permanent number. Okay, Happy New Year, her mother said, quickly hanging up, wanting to get back to her interesting conversations. It was actually not bad. Alex went to his parents, somewhere in a village in the north. Jeannie was quietly surprised that they didn't want to come to London for the new year. But she didn't say anything. Before he left, Alex asked what his housekeeper was going to do for New Year's. Was she going to be lonely? Of course not. With a fence like this and an alarm system, I'm not afraid. I've already spent New Year's alone once. My mum had to unexpectedly fill in for a sick colleague on New Year's Eve. My friends were all out of town and I didn't have time to make plans with anyone. It's nothing special. But it's a little sad, Alex said. You can invite a friend to your guest house. Jeannie invited Daisy. Lucy had a boyfriend, and it was something serious. She was invited to spend New Year's with his family. Daisy asked her father for a train ticket as a gift and spent the holiday with her friend. All morning and afternoon on December 31st, the girls walked around London. In the evening, they came to Jeannie's house for a feast. It's so cozy and fun here, Daisy said, and it's so romantic. Your artistic taste would transform any guard's hut. And who is this? She was looking at Jeannie's pencil drawings and was interested in a portrait of Max Ilinsky. That's Alex's deputy, a womanizer and a slippery character, Daisy said confidently. A clever and cunning one. Yes, that's exactly right. My friend is a witch, Jeannie said, laughing. I've always said you had a talent. And who is this person who looks like Luke Evans? That's Alex, the owner of this house. Daisy's short review meant that she liked the guy. Now I'm wondering if I should run away from home, so a gentleman like that would rescue me from some goons. Daisy, that's not funny. I only realized that morning what could have happened and how lucky I was that Alex was there. So I don't recommend running away. It's an unreliable lottery. Oh, come on, you're too serious. Running away is not for me. I love my comfort. And I'm a coward. But your boss is really handsome. Is his personal life as exciting as it seems? Daisy, his personal life is none of my business. I'm not going to gossip about him. He's polite. He doesn't ask me to do anything impossible. He pays me well for my work, even though I'm inexperienced. And he even brought an art critic to evaluate my sketches. That's already too good, don't you think? Especially after studying to be a bookkeeper and after my mother's Barry, who was always sleeping behind my back. It was New Year's Day, and that conversation seemed like it had happened yesterday. It was already April. Jeannie worked on weekends, regularly took painting and drawing lessons, and didn't think much about other aspects of her life. But on the first truly warm day, when it was clear that winter wasn't coming back, Alex remembered Jeannie's guest house and immediately asked her a question. You've been working for me for more than half a year. You should take a holiday. 2 weeks. Everything is blooming in the south now. Go somewhere and draw outside. That's what it's called. Think about what dates you want off until tomorrow, and we'll agree on them in the evening. I'm too tired today. He left with a tired step. It was easy for him to talk about the South. How was she, a girl from a village, supposed to know where to go so that the money she had saved over the winter would be enough for a trip to a place that was beautiful and not too crowded? She had even managed to save some money after paying for her art classes. When she allowed herself to dream and imagine that her life was going well, her dreams always involved traveling. She had to honestly tell her boss that she needed his advice. She never got to ask Alex about the South's beautiful places. The next day, he came home unexpectedly early at 7 p.m. He knocked on her door and, from the doorway, asked, "Can I come in? I need to talk to you." His flustered appearance made Jeannie confused, and she silently pointed to a chair. "Eugenia, will you be understanding if your holiday has to be postponed a little?" "No problem at all," Jeannie said. "I didn't even know I was supposed to have a holiday until you mentioned it. You're officially employed," Alex said tiredly. "I have to fix your legal illiteracy somehow." "You will," Jeannie said. "Later. I need your help now. My parents are coming." "You want me to make them as comfortable as possible while you work?" Jeannie said with a nod. But her heart sank. For some reason, she imagined Jane's disgusted face, just a little older, and her watchful eyes observing her every move. "Don't get so worked up," her boss said kindly, as if he had read her mind. "You're thinking of someone else, not my parents. They've lived their whole lives in a forestry village. They're just good, normal people from the countryside without any silly, ugly pretense. My father has heart problems. It turns out that there were warning signs before, but he didn't tell anyone. He thought it would get better on its own, but it didn't. They were advised to see a good specialist here. I'll arrange that. And my father needs some positive emotions. He's been told how much time he has left, and it's a scary thing to say. But with his diagnosis, it's better not to deceive yourself. My request may seem strange and absurd to you, and you can say no, I'll understand. My father and mother want me to get married so much. My mother is already openly pestering me. My father, out of male solidarity, mostly stays out of it. But in recent years, he has also been worrying, according to my mother. If you agree to help me, I will introduce you to them as my fiancé. This will make them so happy that it will help them get through the difficult times ahead. It will make a lot of problems seem trivial. Please don't refuse right away. Just think about it. This is important to me. I would never ask you for something beyond your duties if it weren't for these circumstances." Alex waited tensely for her to answer, and she had to answer now, without any hesitation. "I need to focus so I can express myself clearly," she said to justify the pause. "I understand the idea, a little white lie to save a life. But the first objection is, what happens after? Fine, we'll play the parts of a bride and groom. Your father will be happy, but there is no wedding, and we don't know when there will be one. And if we break up, he'll be even more upset after such hopes, and that's not good for him. You'll have to find a real fiancé to fix this, and you can't always do that quickly. You know this better than me. I'll answer your first objection by saying that I'm used to solving problems as they come," Alex said. "As they say, when it gets scary, we'll be scared. The strategy for the future will work itself out as we go along. For now, it's just important for me to give my father and mother strength." "What's your second objection?" "Your candidate is not very suitable. You're a successful man, Alex, and I'm out of your league. Your parents probably imagine that you will marry a businesswoman or a girl from a so-called good family. And that's not me. You, in all your cleverness, just don't see the obvious signs. But your mother will understand right away. You don't need a business here. You need a completely different kind of intuition." Alex's eyebrows went up in surprise, and for the first time that evening, he smiled in confusion. "This is getting deep into psychology," he said. "I like that you're approaching this thoughtfully. And now I'm even more confident that you'll be able to handle it and that they'll really like you. There are all sorts of actresses out there," Jeannie said, playing her last card. "Not all of them are highly paid stars. Many of them need roles and will play even Jacqueline Kennedy if they have to." "My mum and dad would be afraid of Jacqueline Kennedy, Jeannie," Alex said tiredly. "They will like a girl like you. I won't even explain why. I don't have time for it now. You don't have to act. Just be yourself. Just don't forget that we are in a relationship. I promise not to get so into the role that I allow myself any unnecessary intimacy. But just holding hands is not so scary or repulsive, especially since my parents are a little old-fashioned and don't approve of public hugging and stuff. Please help me out. You can take a month off afterward wherever you want to go. I'll pay for everything. And we will solve this problem. It'll be me who has to clean up the mess afterward." "Okay, I'll try to do what I can," Jeannie said, immediately regretting what she had said, as if she had jumped off a high, swaying suspension bridge into the water. "But you have to tell me more about your parents, about your childhood. Show me some photos." It's strange when a groom doesn't tell his bride about his family. The more I know, the better my chances of success. "When are your parents coming?" "The day after tomorrow, in the evening. We'll meet them, send their luggage home with the driver, and then go to dinner to get to know each other, celebrate, and make plans. They'll be staying here for a week. You'll be my guest the whole time." "Fool, why did you agree when you should have said no right away? I could have played panicking easily. He wasn't sure I would agree. It was 50-50. And I can't even tell my friends. They'll just scare me even more. There's not much time. It's too late to regret it. I just have to focus." Jeannie focused. She just copied an old photo of a grey-haired man with kind, tired eyes, who was hugging a small, plump woman by the shoulders, who was proudly holding a heavy perch she had caught. It was a beautiful photo, even if it was taken by an amateur. Her teacher had told her a few days ago that her favorite hobby helped her to calm down. For her, it was drawing. In reality, Alex was so good that if she had a chance to help him, she had to help him and not overthink it. Everything was going wonderfully, like clockwork. Jeannie felt it herself. It was silly for her to have been so worried. Or maybe it wasn't. When she saw her nervousness, which she couldn't hide, Alex's parents started doing everything they could to make her feel at ease. "Let's just have a nice evening," Jane said quietly to her in the dim hallway of the restaurant where they were going to have dinner. The men had gone to choose a bottle of wine, and they lingered in front of a mirror. "We can drop the formalities. I just want to forget about worrying about my son's health and think about the future, a nice future. So don't try to please us. You know how I rehearsed for meeting my future mother-in-law. My husband listened to his mother a lot, and I wanted to make a good impression so she would approve of me. I was so nervous that I forgot all my lines and looked like a complete fool. She probably even doubted that I was able to finish a bookkeeper's course. Now it's funny just to think about it." "I also studied bookkeeping," Jeannie said, unexpectedly wanting to share. "But I don't think I'll ever be able to force myself to work in that field. It's just not for me. I just did it for my mom and finished college." "A job you don't like ruins a woman's character," Alex's mother said. "I like bookkeeping, so I haven't quit yet, no matter what people say. Alex told us on the phone that you draw, that you have a natural talent, but that you have to keep studying. He took a few pictures of your work and sent them to us. Your father and I looked at them so much that we almost missed our train. The dogs, cats, and kids in the drawings were all so alive. You could write stories about them, and when I saw Alex's portrait, all my worries just melted away. He's finally lucky. It's clear that you love him. Even if I'm not an art critic, you can only draw something like that with love. Now, I've embarrassed you. Let's go to the boys." If Jane hadn't led Jeannie by the hand, Jeannie wouldn't have known where she was going, and her legs were as if they were made of cotton. At least she hadn't worn her high heels and had decided to wear comfortable shoes. She would definitely not have been able to stand on her own now. Of course, she was just trying to justify it, but she loved him. She already had a few portraits of Jane's son. Some of them were of him laughing, some of him looking serious, some of him in different places. They were all drawn from memory, and all were safely stored at the very bottom of her drawer, so her boss wouldn't see them again. She was sure that when she left his house for good, she would continue this series of portraits for a long, long time, but they would always be for herself. They would never be in an exhibition. She would definitely draw one of them and her dad talking to each other, so alike and so different at the same time, but both beautiful and happy. She couldn't fall apart. She couldn't ruin the evening. She would consider her foolish feelings a motivation for her creativity. She was entitled to unrequited love now that she was such a bohemian type. She tried to make fun of herself. On a small dance floor in front of a restaurant fireplace, a very interesting couple was dancing a slow dance. A sturdy, handsome, grey-haired man was moving a little awkwardly, but it was clear that he hadn't had many chances to dance in his life. But he was radiant with a calm contentment and wasn't at all embarrassed by his lack of skill. His partner was a skinny, red-haired girl in a graceful turquoise dress, who was smiling a little shyly but whose eyes were happy. "Just don't be a brute with her, Alex," Jane said to her son, finding a moment to talk while the couple was dancing. "She's so defenseless and so much younger than you. You're taking on a big responsibility. Don't mess it up. I really, really like Jeannie. I won't let you hurt her. She's a sophisticated girl." "Sophisticated?" Alex said suddenly. He was happy that he had found the right word. It was true. He just hadn't had the time to process what he had already noticed. For an idiot like him, she needed expensive dresses, a beautiful fireplace, and the right surroundings. "Hello, Alex," a familiar, low, velvet voice sang behind his back. "Hello, Mum. I'll be back in 5 minutes. I need to talk to someone I know." "Don't miss me," Alex said, quickly motioning for Jane to go with him. "I was having dinner here with a friend. I see Alex is an interesting company. You could have introduced me to your mum," Jane said with a gentle sneer. "I wouldn't have said anything bad about you. Only good things. I don't understand why you're so nervous. Has your relationship with your young housekeeper exhausted you so much that you've turned into a little boy? You decided to introduce her to your father to cheer him up? That will make him happy. But at his age, you have to be careful and think about his health." What's the point of all that you just said, trying to seem calm? Alex asked, breathing heavily. Sometimes we girls just act without a purpose, a carefree, clear voice said instead of Jane. We're just offended, my dear. I think it's disrespectful to your parents to make them spend an evening with your live-in girlfriend, your housekeeper. You should keep those parts of your life separate. That's what I wanted to tell Alex, as a, let's say, an old friend. What did you say? I heard you perfectly, Jane said, her angry eyes burning. A housekeeper? What a disgrace for our family to sit at the same table with her. I don't know where you were brought up. But no one is surprised anymore when people meet at work and girls marry their bosses. I'm here to have a good evening, and I have no intention of listening to any nasty things about my future daughter-in-law. Good night to you, she sang politely to Jane and quickly disappeared into the half-darkness of the restaurant. That woman is such a witch, Alex said to her, feeling a moment of relief. And you're just as bad. What do you take my father and me for? Did you think we would be against you marrying a housekeeper? Thousands of girls take a job like that while they're studying. Waitresses, chambermaids in hotels. More than half of them are students. You know that. I like to chat and meet people when I'm on holiday, so I know a thing or two. But I'll be quiet so I don't embarrass Jeannie. She's already nervous enough. Now I can't stop laughing. They came home so late that all they had time to do was feed Fiver and go to bed. The next day, his father had his first checkup at noon. Jeannie couldn't understand herself. Did she want, or was she afraid to stay alone in her guest house, to relive every little detail of that evening, and to somehow find the strength to play her part again tomorrow? She hoped that Michael would get better, and she could think about finding a way out of the situation later. At least she would have something to remember. If she ever had a daughter, she would show her a few dozen portraits of one man and tell her this story. Jane turned off her eternal engine when she managed to convince her husband to go to bed. Well, kids, you finally have a moment to be alone. You're tired of us for today, and our invasion will last for the rest of the week. Good night, dear ones. Alex's parents closed the door of the guest bedroom behind them, and Jeannie and Alex found themselves in the garden. It was so quiet there that you could hear Fiver sighing and sniffing. I'm trying to seem calm and reasonable, she said quietly, as long as I do everything right. It all went wonderfully, Alex said with a strange, warm voice. Only because of your parents. It's so easy to be around them. Oh, I'm sorry, your parents. I have a hard time switching. No, I wanted to ask you to do that myself. Don't look at me like I'm an idiot after what I'm about to say. If I don't say this, I might miss a very important opportunity, and I don't usually do that. Let's really be together. It's not for fun or out of boredom. I want to see you every day, and I'm sure I won't get tired of it. What do you say to that? Am I so repulsive in that way? I'll go now, she said, and quietly swayed. Don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe for more stories.